Hello, everybody. This is Peter and Sylvia. We're back with another topic of mental health and well-being in the workplace and life in general. And as Sylvia just indicated, we are armed and ready with our coffees and teas. And this episode is dedicated to something that is more and more, I wouldn't say popular, but we know more and more about it, and it's taking up more and more space in the media and everywhere else. And it's called ADHD. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, if you want to spell it out. And it gets a lot of press, good and bad, from people claiming that it's a myth, it doesn't exist, to almost the opposite extreme where it's almost as if everybody has ADHD. So, of course, neither extreme is true. And we're just trying to figure out how we deal with ADHD, because certainly as a therapist, I am not qualified to do ADHD assessments. I could be by the click of a button because I get so many LinkedIn direct messages and adverts encouraging me to buy this ADHD assessment tool, where I can then ask my clients to sit in front of my computer and do a test on screen, which will then somehow give a diagnosis of ADHD. I have chosen not to go down that route. So if someone suspects they have ADHD and I think it sounds reasonable, I will refer them to the GP, because there are a lot of private operators out there who offer ADHD assessment and medication, but I'm not associated with any of them, and I don't know which are the good ones and which are the snake oil sellers. But what happens with ADHD in the workplace? What happens with ADHD at school? I mean, how much can we accommodate? How much should we accommodate? What's your take on this, Sylvia?
First of all, I'm in the same position as you in terms of ADHD and assessments. Um, I have been experiencing quite a few more people being referred to me that have either had a diagnosis not by private practice or by private provider via the GP and via NHS assessments. I've had others who have done an online assessment tool themselves and then have been given a diagnosis on the online assessment tool, you have ADHD, which they have then working with that. Rather, they may be trying to get medication online, and that brings up different challenges, because is that the right medication? Is that the right level of medication? Is that the right dosage of medication? I have other people who think they have ADHD, and like you, my first response is, go via your GP. However, we all know that getting an appointment with a GP is not easy these days, let alone an assessment for ADHD. I think the latest I heard was either 18 months or even 24 months, even to have an assessment.
Mm.
So a lot of people are then turning to these online assessment tools, because they want something done before 18, 24
Mm.
months. I wonder, is this because we have more knowledge and we as a society are more knowledgeable, or whether this is something, we have touched on this on previous discussions, whether this is something that's the latest, might sound a bit controversial, but trend to have ADHD, or to, go for ADHD assessment, or is it the fact that more people are or have ADHD and we are becoming more attuned and more knowledgeable about it? I don't know the answer, is my honest answer. I don't know the answer. But in workplaces, it is challenging in terms of, if someone comes into a workplace and has a clinically diagnosed via the NHS and everything else diagnosis, then the workplace has legal requirement to make workplace adjustments to whatever that person needs. But if that person comes into a workplace with a online assessment tool, how does then the employer work with that? Because I think we've touched on this before, for the employer to then challenge that, the individual might then become quite defensive. Well, I have this diagnosis, who are you, employer, to challenge that? At the same time, does the employer have the right to challenge that when this diagnosis has come from a body other than via the normal channels? Or is it for our society to accept that these other channels are becoming more the norm? I don't know. It's really a dilemma. At the same time, the person, whether diagnosed or claims to have ADHD, it is very challenging for them to operate in today's society and to find ways of managing themselves in today's world. You know, it's not easy for them. It really isn't easy for them.
And this is where we have this usual debate between when is it real, when is it imagined?
Mm.
Those who have ADHD will tell you how complicated life can be.
Yes.
And then there are all those who pretend to have ADHD. But who are we to tell which one is which?
Yeah.
And it's a difficult situation.
Mm.
I have over the years had a number of clients who thought they might have ADHD. And our conversations then started to dig into their lives and what they were up against, what they were doing. And in the majority of the cases that I have dealt with, it turned out that the symptoms of being unable to focus and to concentrate and jumping from one thing to the next was good old-fashioned chronic stress.
Mm-hmm.
So we dealt with the stress because those symptoms overlap an awful lot with some of ADHD symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And then some cases said, well, go and see your GP because there's merit in this, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell how much or how little. That's not my specialist area.
Mm.
So we have to be careful not to just want a label because it can give us some benefits, as in more time for exams, studying help, or some adjustments at work that
Mm-hmm.
we may or may not be entitled to. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an awful conversation to have, really, because we could offend a lot of people with ADHD watching this. We say, well, how dare these two people say all of this?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look around you, I think those people with a genuine ADHD, they treat life differently to those who are hoping, can I say this? Those who are hoping that they have this diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different level of being genuine about the whole thing, I find.
I know quite a few people that have gone through the very long, slow process of getting a diagnosis via GP, via the NHS. And once they have a diagnosis, their world has changed for the better
Mhm.
because they then have, they have then been told, yes, you have ADHD. And for them, it's answered so many questions. And also then the medication, the appropriate medication they have then taken, their lives are so much better for them. At the same time, as you said, for a lot of those people, have I got ADHD or have I not? There are pros and cons, as in so many things, of both. And others, to your point, talking about stress, it may be simply someone that has an enormous amount of energy. I know 2 or 3 people that have so much energy. Their energy is limitless. That's just the way they are. They're not ADHD. They have so much energy, and it's finding things that they can put their energy in that uses that energy rather than it sort of building up and that sort of hyperactivity. My point is there are pros and cons. And for those with ADHD, and again, it's the language has just popped up for me. Do we say have ADHD or with ADHD? What is the correct terminology? Again, because I know 2 or 3 people, one would say I have ADHD and one says I live with ADHD. So again, it's knowing the language to use too. But again, the diagnosis, I think a lot of it is because it's taking such a long time. I think
And
that's
I
where
think
it boils down to. It's taking such a long time for the diagnosis that people are finding alternative methods.
and I think your distinction between having ADHD or living with ADHD also shows a difference in attitude of
Mm,
the person using those letters.
mm,
And there are those who think it's more preferable to get a diagnosis rather than to deal with what's actually going on, so that
mm,
it becomes the excuse and then you don't have to deal with anything. Because if I don't behave well, it's because, oh, I've got this or I've got that. And that is where the labeling goes wrong and tarnishes those with a genuine issue. Because is it an issue? Is it something you live with? Is that what makes you special? Is that what gives
mm,
you something that you can do that I can't do?
mm,
So it is usually one of those topics where we can't come down on one side of the fence or the other,
mm,
because both sides do exist.
mm,
But it would be interesting to hear what people think about this. If you
mm,
have ADHD, if you think you have ADHD, has this conversation riled you in some
mm,
way or supported what you think? We're curious, we're learning, so we are more than happy to hear what you think. And thank you for staying with us for
mm.
this episode.
Thank you.